Hello, my fellow speakers. This is Brian, the Speaker for the Dead, coming to you with a video today. Mainly because I've just got a bee in my bonnet that I need to verbalize and just get it out there. So let me tell you what happened. Last night I was watching a live stream with Black Angus, and he was having some people come on his channel or on the live stream with differing views, and people who are, I don't know, they are having issues with the Phantom Menace or just a variety of different views, which I really respect Angus for doing this. The fact that he gives an open forum to people that actively disagree with him and is always respectful and stuff. And he was very respectful. The first guy he had on was pretty good, and was fairly reasonable. And they had a pretty interesting discussion. The second person that he brought on, however, is the one I want to focus in and zero in on. Not as an attack. Okay, this is not meant as an attack on this guy. I don't know this person, but I know his type. So the person I'm talking about is called Firewater FX, is the other guest that Angus had on last night. And now it sounds like a lot of people know who this guy is. I'd never heard of him before. Seeing him on the channel last night, but he came on and then for the first little bit, he was actually okay. I will link to this live stream so you can go watch it if you want. It's a fairly long live stream, but it was really good. And so you can go and judge for yourself what how you feel about the guy that I'm going to talk about. Because he actually had some good points, and I actually thought he was well-spoken, quite intelligent. It wasn't like I just thought, oh, what an idiot. I mean, he can't even make a point. See, but that's the problem. See, when a fool makes a point, it's always foolish. It's always stupid. When he makes a bad point, well, nobody's going to pay attention. Nobody's going to listen because this is a fool making a bad point. Nobody's going to care. The problem is when a smart person and an intelligent person makes a stupid argument or stupid point, it comes off sounding credible. It comes off sounding reasonable. And that scares me when it comes to stuff like this, because I just think somebody's going to listen to this guy, not know the other side, and think, oh, he's got it right. So kind of the gist of this, and I don't want to miscategorize this guy. I'm just going off of some of the things he said last night on the live stream. And he very quickly became combative, argumentative, and adversarial. I mean, it's just like Angus would be talking or asking him a question or something, and he'd jump right in the middle of Angus. Like Angus would be making a point, and he'd just stop him dead in the middle of his point and be like, well, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by this? What is that? What is this? And it's just like, dude, rude much? I'm like, it's one thing to have a discussion, but when you just jump in on top of somebody and start talking over them, that's rude. I mean, unless they're like filibustering where they're not giving you a chance to respond, but Black Angus isn't like that. Black Angus is very fair, will let you have your say, and stuff like that. I mean, I could tell, at least in my opinion, Black Angus was getting a little frustrated, but to his credit, he was great. And he didn't clap back at this guy. He didn't, and stuff. But there was a couple times where he's just like, well, let me finish my, and stuff. So, but this guy constantly did that to him. And I kind of felt bad. I didn't hear very much from Tara, who was the other person on there. And when she did speak, he seemed to be more docile in reference to her, as opposed to anybody else. But I was making comments in the chat and stuff like I always do on the Black Angus stream, because I enjoy what he does. And I was making some comments about this guy because he just seemed like he was being angry for the sake of being angry. Now, he started out by saying that he had been a Patreon of Geeks and Gamers, and he seems to have a real problem with the Phantom Menace. Which I consider myself to be a loose part of the Phantom Menace. I wouldn't say I'm like a, dyed in the wool Phantom Menace member, but I agree with a lot of the things that they say. But I don't always agree with the way they say it or how they conduct themselves. I think there's a better way to do it. And anybody who knows me knows that I am critical of the Phantom Menace when I think they deserve it, and I'm on their side when I think they merit that. But this guy just seemed like he was a patron of Geeks and Gamers at one time, and then he said Jeremy made some political statement, and he got all butthurt and was like, "Well, that's not what I paid for," and then he just he unsubscribed and walked away from his patronage of Geeks and Gamers, which is fine. Geeks and Gamers is probably one of my least favorite guys in the Phantom Menace. Now, I don't mean like everybody that falls under the Geeks and Gamers umbrella, which seems to have a lot of people. I like Ryan with RK Outpost, and there's a lot of other guys on there that are under his umbrella that I like some of their stuff. But Jeremy himself, I struggle with Jeremy myself personally. Sometimes I like what he's doing, and sometimes I don't care for what he's doing at all. But this guy got all butthurt because he made some... It's just like, really? So somebody has to completely agree with you and your politics and only say what you want to say, or you feel cheated and you want your money back and they're a bad person now. It's just like, I talk about politics on my channel. I talk about everything. My channel is not limited to one thing or another thing or whatever, and that's not to say anybody that does that is bad. I think it's crazy to get that obsessed about it. It's just like, well, you said something political I don't like, I'm leaving. Okay, well, that's your right and stuff. But he seems to have tarred the entire Phantom Menace and Comicsgate and other people with the same brush. And I don't understand that. I don't get that. So you have one bad experience, or there's a bad experience with... They talked a lot about Jeff Hicks and his screw up with his comic book, stealing Solo, and all the controversy that's been going on with that. If you don't know what's going on, not really important, not really relevant story. But he was supposed to put out a comic. There were some problems with the comic. It hasn't been delivered, and he's trying to take care of it. Sounds like Jeff is kind of being flaky about things. Now, as I said, I know very little about the details of this story. His girlfriend, which is another Geeks and Gamers member, kind of jumped into the fray on this, and they were discussing that, and he was just like, because but because Jeff Hicks and the World Class Bullshitters had an issue or whatever with this comics thing, he was just like, well, I wouldn't trust any of them now. They're just not going to be good. I wouldn't trust any of them. And it's just like, wait, what? Because the Phantom Menace is not like a coalition of people that has leadership and items of conduct, and this is how you have to be, and this is what we expect and stuff, which seemed to be another one of his problems, is like he wants to nail down exactly what the Phantom Menace is. I love that aspect of the Phantom Menace, that there isn't some criteria that I've got to follow to be a member of the Phantom Menace. It includes voices from everybody, and we don't all agree, and we don't all think we have to walk in lockstep. It's one of the great things about the Phantom Menace is that you don't have to be that. You don't have to be some nut who's a zealot and only adheres to this rigid category of things. You can talk about whatever you want. You can still be Phantom Menace. I would say that the core principles of Phantom Menace is wanting good pop culture. And I don't think we even agree on what that means. But we all know bad pop culture and bad films when we see them. I mean, but this guy, Firewater, was just like I can't remember, Black Angus or one of the other guests was talking about SJWs. And everybody knows what an SJW is. And he jumped on whoever was talking and was like, well, what do you mean by SJW? Define that. What is that? And I commented, I'm like, are you being purposely dense? Now, I didn't mean it as a rude comment. I was asking a sincere question. Are you purposely being dense, or is this just a debating tactic? Because that's what it seemed like he was doing. I debated guys like this in high school. Fast talkers, really smart, but they trip over their own arguments because they're so aggressive, like they don't seem to make sense. And stuff, like I said, and he came off as very smart and very intelligent, but as I said, it was like his emotions were overruling his good judgment. And he's tarring an entire group of people with the actions of a few, which That's a foolish thing to do, no matter what group you're talking about. And it was a bizarre thing. But yeah, anyway, so he got upset and he was just like, well, I'm not dense, and I'm just like, well, like, you don't seem to want the answers, or, you're asking questions about things you already should know the answers to. And his response was, well, I never get clear answers. And I'm sitting there thinking, you never allow people to answer. Even when Angus was trying to answer some of the questions that he would ask, he was just like, he'd jump in the middle of him and start trying to, well, what did you mean by that? What do you mean by this? Oh, what do you mean by transphobic? What is that? I mean, and it was just like, and it's what all people who seem to come from his persuasion, and I'm sure he'd ask me, what do you mean by that? But, it was like, from his persuasion, the guys that seem to be naturally combative and aggressive and want to, but when you debate like that, you're ultimately self-defeating, because you come across so negatively that you'll actually turn people away and stuff. And anyway, it led to a point in this where, like, he was being this way through the whole thing. And finally, I made a comment that said, being contrarian is very tiring, because I felt like that's what he was doing. Like, he was just like, even like, by pretending he didn't know what things meant, it was just like, so he'd wait for somebody to say what it meant and then jump on their definition. Well, that's not what you don't understand. And it's just like, whoa, okay, chill out, dude. Anyway, that led to this, and I'm going to bring this up, and I'm actually going to play this clip from Black Angus's stream, and I hope he doesn't mind that, but it proves the point of what I'm talking about, because after I made that comment, he actually started talking about me on the live stream, and stuff, which is, I'm just like, well, dude, if you're going to do that, then, anyway, so I was like, I can't talk back to you. All I can do is comment on the chat. And unless you want me to write, 20-minute diatribes, how am I supposed to answer what you're asking me online? Anyway, so I'm going to pull this up here and we're going to listen to it. And then I want you to tell me what you think about what he's saying here.
So what is the speaker being a contrarian is tiring? We're here to have a discussion about differing views. What do you want from me? Fucking Asstonod. What do you?
No, speaker's a great guy.
Okay.
He's been contrarian like me, I guess you would say.
I'm not being contrarian for the sake of being contrarian. I'm consistent in with all my views.
Hey, that makes for good conversation, though.
No, we're having.
All right. One, that's not what contrarian means. Okay, contrarian means that you go against the grain. It means that you buck current trends. Well, he's bucking the current trend of the Phantom Menace. I'm very consistent in all my views. That doesn't mean you're not a contrarian. It's like, you're a smart guy, and why? Do you not understand what I meant? It's just like, okay, you're supposed to be this intelligent guy, but when I say you're a contrarian, you misunderstand what that means. I wasn't calling him a name. I was saying that seems to be what he's doing, being a contrarian, because, like I said, he would constantly berate people, or not, I don't know if berate's the right term, but he would go after them. Well, what do you mean by that? Define this. I want to know these answers. Nobody gives me clear answers. It's just like, well, do you ever stop talking long enough to hear an answer? I was just like, wow. And like I said, I have nothing against this guy, although, I don't know if you noticed, he called me a Asstonod. I didn't even know what the hell that was. I had to go look it up, because I'm just like, okay. Asstonod is an Italian slang for a stupid person. So in order to be cryptic, he has to call me a name using a slang that 90% of people listening aren't going to know what he's talking about. And here's a little tip for you there, Firewater. The second you have to start calling people names, you've lost. Because that shows that you can't go against an argument, so you just have to start calling people names. I'm a Asstonod for asking you questions, and there had been several points during this. I asked questions of him, And he never responded to those, which there was a lot of people in the stream, and maybe he missed them. He wasn't like reading all the comments and stuff, but he seemed to like be selectively picking out comments that I made. He responded to a couple of things that I said, and then there was this dialogue where he actually called me a name, and well, okay, because Black Angus defended me, because Black Angus kind of knows me. And so, Black Angus defended, no, he's a great guy and stuff. He's being contrary. You know, you're being contrarian like I'm a contrarian and stuff. And he's just like, I'm not contrarian. I'm completely constant and all my, and it's just like, that's not what that means. Okay. So I don't understand why you're so upset about, because that's not calling you a name. Contrarian isn't like asshole. Pardon my swearing. I'm just using that as a, an example, but that's not what I mean, it was bizarre. Anyway, so, I mean, I was just trying to ask this guy questions and get inside of his head because, I don't mean that in a bad way, but like to understand where he was coming from, because he seemed so angry. And one of the other guys I follow, Curtis YZ, we were kind of talking back and forth, and Curtis was just like, hey, don't worry about it. He's a funny guy. Don't get tripped up on his aggressiveness and stuff. And I respect Curtis's opinion. So I took him at his word on that. But then he started calling me names, and I'm just like, dude, what? You can't take any criticism. You can't handle any questions back at you, but you expect everybody else to respond and to give you clear answers. It's like, that's not how it works. And I wasn't against like I said, I wouldn't have been watching this stream if I had a problem with conversation or with differing views and opinions. Okay, I wouldn't have come and watched this. So for him to be like, well, what do you want from me? It's just like, well, for one, I'd like you to actually act like a more pleasant human being and let people finish their sentences and maybe, I don't know, finish a point that they're making before you jump in on top of them and start demanding definitions for all the words, okay? Now, big people, big boys, and big adults know the definitions of words. SJW has a specific connotation and a specific definition. And by the way, it's not one that the Phantom Menace came up with. Social justice warriors are defined by their own definitions. They're the ones that came up with that term. The people who are SJWs, they coined that term. Not the Phantom Menace, not me, not Black Angus. So why are you asking us to define SJW? They defined what it meant. They're people who want to change society and social norms that they see as a problem, and through Twitter and through by manipulating outcomes based on supposed injustices. That's what social justice is in a nutshell. And if you don't know that, why is it my responsibility to sit here and define terms for you? Why don't you go look this stuff up? You say you were part of the Phantom Menace or you were interested in the Phantom Menace, and then you walked away because of political stuff. I mean, YouTuber heal thyself. Don't expect me to define terms for you. If you don't know what a term is, I mean, ask. But it was the way he was asking. He was like, like I said, combative, aggressive, adversarial. And I feel like the guys in Star Trek, when they're, the Prophets characters, I don't know if you guys ever watched Deep Space Nine, but it's like aggressive, adversarial. And they keep saying that through the first episode. Sorry, total Star Trek nerd moment there. But like I said, I don't have anything against this guy other than the fact that he called me a Asstonod, which is a stupid person. I didn't call him names, by the way. And I did say one thing in here when I was asking, I'm like, are you being purposely dense? Okay, now that might have sounded like a negative, and maybe I should have asked that in a different way. But I was actually sincere in my question because he kept asking everybody to define what they meant. And I'm just like, are you being purposely dense or what are you, I mean, because to me that's a sad debate tactic that I saw used back in high school. Like I said, you jump in the middle of people, in the middle of their thoughts, and try and derail them off on trying to define terms that you already obviously know the answer to. Or if you don't, then ask sincerely. It's like, oh, okay. So when you say SJW, what do you mean by that? How do you define that? See, hear the difference? How would you say you define that so that we're both talking on the same level and we understand each other, as opposed to, what do you mean by that? Define that term. You see what I mean? There's a different way of doing that. And that's how he came at this whole thing, was like he was under attack. Although Angus never treated him like that, and neither did anybody else in this stream. He was on with Mad Max and stuff. I made a comment. I'm just like, that's kind of a weird stream when Mad Max is the calm one. I mean, because, like I said, Firewater, it was like he came loaded for bear. Like he was expecting to be assaulted. Well, dude, nobody was here to assault you. Anyway, let's finish listening to this. I don't think there's that much more, but let's finish listening to this little back and forth that involved me.
Having conversation of diverse thought.
I can't. I guess I'm not. I guess I have the wrong opinions.
My opinion on Kevin Feige.
Right there. If this guy isn't an SJW, he's got their modus operandi down. Okay? He turns after being aggressive and in everybody's face through this whole video where he's been on, and then acts like he's the victim. Well, I guess I just have the wrong opinion. I never said you had the wrong opinion, Asstonod. I was trying to figure out what you're talking about. Why are you acting this way? You're being contrarian, like you're trying to buck the trend of everything that's going on here. It's just like I don't understand what you're doing, because like you just seem like you're mad for the sake of being mad. Now, I get mad about stuff, and I'm irritated about things. But like he kept making everybody else define themselves, define their terms, define what they wanted, and stuff like that. But he himself never did that one time. Not once. During this whole thing did he come back and really be, at least I never felt like he did. Maybe he did. But I never felt like he was like very open and forthcoming about what he thinks should be the way forward. Okay, if the Phantom Menace sucks so bad and if we're so terrible, what is that needs to be done different? You want us to set up a specific group of leaders and have a charter and have a membership roster and all that kind of stuff so that you can feel warm and fuzzy? That way you can attack us more specifically? That's exactly why the Phantom Menace is the way it is. Because it makes it impossible for guys like this and others to come after us and attack us and try and put us into this little box where they can go, see, these guys are jerks because of this, and this. It's in their charter. So that's what this guy seems like to me. He's mad that he can't attack the Phantom Menace in a more comprehensive way because you can't nail it down. The Phantom Menace has no boundaries, has no rules other than try and be good to each other, try and be respectful, try and be open to new things, because I am completely open. Like I said, I'd have a conversation with this guy, but I wouldn't let him run roughshod over me, because that's not the way that should be handled. I'd be like, well, I'd have turned it back on him. And I'm not criticizing Black Angus here, not at all. He was very, very good to this guy. I mean, I would have probably gotten just a little bit more back in his face, just because I don't like being treated like this. To have somebody coming at me like I've got I've brought a knife to a gunfight. He just seemed like he was angry and upset. And how do you define social justice warrior? I'd have turned it back on him and said, well, what do you think social justice warrior means? Stop making me define everything. You tell me what you think that means. I mean, you obviously have an opinion about what you think we think it means. So tell me what it is. Tell me what you think our opinion is on that. Because you obviously have one, because you're questioning my interpretation of social justice warrior. So anyway, I don't want to belabor this. I just thought it was interesting, and I had kind of a weird reaction from this guy, and then he tried to play victim. Oh, I don't have the right opinions, I guess. I never said that. I didn't understand why you had to be so negative about everything. And it's just like, I mean, and his explanations for why he hated the Phantom Menace didn't seem to really make sense. Now, there's guys in the Phantom Menace I don't particularly care for. Like I said, Jeremy isn't my favorite person in the Phantom Menace. I like EVS. I like the fact he's doing comics and stuff like that. And it's one thing I said when they were talking about the comic books thing. I'm just like, why do we have to get all upset? Why does everybody have to feel butthurt about the fact that the Comics Gate has gone out and trying to create their own thing? Be happy for them. Be happy that people go and try and fulfill their dreams and live their dreams and create what they want to create and create their own businesses and do their own thing. Why do you have to attack them? And so I don't understand why people feel the need to attack the Phantom Menace. Now Mad Max does it a little bit, and this guy apparently does it, and I'm just like, well, if you think we're so bad, and like I say, I'm only a loose member, go create something of your own. Go show us how we've done it wrong. Do it the right way, and then but to come at the Phantom Menace and try and, because it takes no creativeness to destroy something. It really doesn't. If all you want to do is tear down somebody else's movement, that says a lot about you. That says a lot about the fact that you are not a builder, you're a destroyer. You're someone who tears things down. And he kept mentioning his portfolio. Like, I don't know what this guy does for a living and stuff, but he's like, oh, I got stock in Disney, and I think they're great. And, and I don't know. His views on culture, as far as I could determine them, would have been very antithetical to mine. But that's fine. And like I said, I never called his view wrong. I disagreed with how he chose to bring his views across. Because nobody needs to be that angry all the time. You need to tone it down a little bit, brother. Anyway, I just wanted to bring this forefront because it kept me up all night. I went to bed after watching this stream and watching how this guy behaved. And seriously, I could not sleep. I just laid there and my brain was just buzzing like crazy. And I finally had to get up and take a sleeping pill so I could actually go to sleep. And then I woke up at 4 o'clock this morning and my brain was like, okay, now you can't quiet me with sleeping pills anymore. Let's start off right where we left off. And it just started all over again. I'm like, okay, I got to exercise this demon. I got to get on and make a video about this guy and just kind of work through this. So you guys are my therapy today. Lucky you. But I have a struggle with the things like this. People who want to tear stuff down, destroy other people's clubs, creative groups, and whatever for the sake that they don't feel like they belong to it. So become a part and change the group. Help that group become better. But it takes no effort and no energy to sit outside and ridicule something from a distance. It really doesn't. And it doesn't show any kind of real creativity or drive on your part. I just think, good luck to this guy. He said at one time he had a YouTube channel and now he doesn't. So, I guess it's easier not to have a channel, sit back and critique other people who are doing this kind of stuff. And like I say, I have under no delusions that the Phantom Menace is perfect or that I agree with everything they're doing. In fact, I'm planning on doing a video on this new Star Wars script that supposedly came out, the Trevorrow Script, because everybody in the Phantom Menace is acting like, this would have been the greatest Star Wars ever. And I'm just like, wait a minute. When all these leaks were coming out, a lot of what people are reading out in this Trevorrow Script were leaked out as what the Rise of Skywalker was supposed to eventually be. And back then, when it was just leaks, before the movie had come out, the same people who are now saying the Trevorrow Script would have been the best Star Wars, it would have been so much better than what we got. Back then, when they were just leaks, were crapping all over these ideas like they were the worst thing ever. So, to Firewater's point, that there are a lot of people in the Phantom Menace who are just being purposely negative, that this outrage, that they're trying to keep outrage going, and that to be angry about Star Wars and stuff. I think there is some of that. To that point, I agreed with him. But with everything else, and because of how aggressive he was, it put me off. And that's what I thought, dude, you don't have a really bad point, but your manner about putting that point out there is kind of defeating your message. Don't be the messenger that destroys the message, because I think he's a smart guy. Apparently he knows Italian slang right off the top of his head to call people names, hoping that they won't know what he's talking about. But I have a phone and I have the internet and I can look that stuff up. I'm not Italian, so I would not know that. And if you want to call me a name, do it in something that I actually know what the hell you're talking about, or don't call me a name at all. Just saying. So anyway, just if you don't like the way the Phantom Menace is going, become a part of it and help us change it. Because I agree with you. There are things going on in the Phantom Menace that I don't agree with. There's some bad actors. There's some people who are doing stuff that they really need to stop doing. They need to stop being this outrage culture. I struggle. I've always been a fan of Nerdrotic, but I'm starting to struggle with him as well because he feels like he's starting to do that. He's just kind of negative about everything. And I understand there's a lot to be negative about. I really understand, but I felt that in my own life. And that's why I've started trying to turn my focus into being, where can we go from here? What can I be positive about? That's why I'm doing stuff on The Expanse, because I love The Expanse. I love what they're doing. It's interesting to me. That's why I'm doing it. I'm choosing to focus on the things that I care about that are good, the old Star Wars, the old Star Trek, and maybe hopefully someday we'll get something better from those franchises. Doctor Who, for people that are fans of that, maybe someday we'll get something better. But for right now, sitting there crapping on every single episode and everything that they do, what's the point of that? You just hand guys like Firewater ammunition to hurl at your group to show that you're being unreasonable. And I mean, given what this is happening with this Trevorrow script coming out, you sound unreasonable. You really, really do. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I hope this wasn't boring for you, but I just thought this was an interesting discussion. I really encourage you to go watch this stream. It was very interesting to watch. And I want to see if your opinion was the same or different than mine. A lot of people didn't agree with my take on the way Firewater was being. He had a lot of defenders in the chat. And like I said, I wasn't trying to be nasty to him. I just was trying to understand where he was coming from. But he wasn't answering about half my questions. And then the ones that he did focus in on were the ones that he could make himself look like a victim over. So I was just like, okay, why didn't you answer my question when I asked you something about what you just said? And then when I say something where it just looks like you're being negative, then you focus in and answer my questions. And see, selective reading of the chat to make yourself look like the victim and to make yourself look like you're the poor picked on guy here, now, that might work in some circles, but it actually weakens your position instead of strengthens your position. And I would assume from the way you were speaking, you're smarter than that. So, and quick update. Because I'm going to be on a live stream with Black Angus tonight for his monetization stream. I will not be doing my live stream for episode 9 of The Expanse. I will do that tomorrow night. I will plan on doing that 7 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. So if you're back east, you'll have to, it'll be later than that. It'll be probably 9 or 8, depending on where you are in the country and you're watching. I'm really looking forward to that. I hope you are too. And come and watch Black Angus's live stream tonight. It should be good. He's been monetized on his channel, and this is his way of celebrating. I don't know how long I'll be on there. I think he's going to try and have a wide roster of guests coming on and leaving and stuff. So, but I'm looking forward to being on there tonight. And like I said, go check out this live stream. It was great, and maybe you'll understand what I'm talking about. So thanks. We'll see you next time. Bye now.